Greetings from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry, and today I am tackling, actually all week I've been tackling a real monster of a job because it's really been a real mess right here. This is the walkway that leads up to the front door, so it should have a very beautiful presentation, and yet what I've got here is an absolute mess. As you can see by this little border, it has absolutely no rhyme nor reason. Oh, it's got plants in it, but they don't go together. They just look horrible. Here we've got daylilies, grass, violets, liriape, vines, English ivy, and it's just a disaster. It looks horrible. It doesn't look like anything except for a mess. Here, the one thing I planted in here that I really wanted were hardy geraniums, and they're just barely peeking through. So I have done something extremely extreme, and I am tearing up the whole thing. I have been digging the whole garden out. I've gotten halfway there, actually more than halfway, because up here on the other level, it was the same problem. And I have already dug everything out of here, except for the daylilies that surround the little frog pond there. Now, it's a lot of work, because I've got to save the good stuff, like the hardy geraniums. There was some yarrow in here, liriape, even some beautiful lamb's ear, and all these bulbs, and irises as well. There simply was no consistency or comradeship in this garden. Everything was just a modge podge of a mess, and that's because I just ignored this garden last year, and probably the year before, and I just let it go to rack and ruin. And sometimes that's a problem when you've got too many gardens. And I really do have a lot of gardens for one person to take care of. I want to make this a garden that I do not have to worry about. I just want to make this so simple, so easy, and something that I don't have to come in here and weed constantly or replant constantly. And so I am going to completely redo this and hopefully into something very simple but very beautiful to notice as you walk along the path. And what I'm considering at this point is just about 3 flowers to put in, 3 different plants. What I want down here, I want blue, low-growing ground covers. And the hardy geraniums, which are also very creeping to the ground. That's all I want in this section. Just filled up with those blue flowers that will be perennials that I don't have to plant every year. And I want them to be low growing because I like for the stone wall to show. So I am ripping up all the rest of this. And I'll be planting seed. Up on this level, I want something obviously a little bit taller, but I only want 1 or 2 plants up here, aside from the daylilies, which I will let them continue to grow. But I'm looking at something in the buttercream yellow department. Yellow and blue look beautiful together, so I'm thinking of doing a dwarf cosmos up here, which is sort of a very pale yellow. I'm not sure, but something has got to be done. Now, right in the center of this garden is a little frog pond, but we cut a tree down last week. And when it fell, one of the branches just dove right into this vinyl lining in the pond and made a huge hole in it, which gave me the opportunity to clean the whole thing out, and it was pretty bad. A lot of tadpoles got to go live in the creek, and a couple little frogs too. Just tore the whole thing out, pulled the lining out, tried to repair it. I think it's still going to be leaking, but I guess that's a job for another day. But it does look a little bit better. So, using my trusty garden fork, I am taking out every single plant in this section right here. The good plants will be put into buckets where they will be transplanted into other gardens, such as the beautiful variegated ivy. I really like that, but I don't want it here. Of course, the hardy geraniums are coming back into this garden, but there's liriape and, oh, goodness gracious, I think there's even some poison ivy in here. It's a real mess. That was a lot of work. And now I have this huge open space. And the question is, what am I going to do with it? Well, that brings us to one of our antique flowers of the week. Today's antique flower, number one, is going to be the cosmos. This is going to be planted from seed and sown directly into the garden. This is fairly easy to grow. It's a very common flower. I'm sure you've seen it before. It's sort of a daisy-like flower with very simple petals. And the word cosmos comes from the Greek, cosmos with a K, meaning beautiful. So that's a pretty straightforward meaning for what is a very beautiful flower. Claudia is with us today. In fact, she's not being very helpful, to be honest with you. She's beautiful too. In the late 18th century, Charles III of Spain commissioned his explorers to collect the seed of the cosmos in Mexico, which was at the time one of their colonies. In 1798, the cosmos was introduced to England, where it really did not do very well because of the climate. It really thrives in real heat, and it almost thrives very much on neglect, a little bit like the zinnia, which is also a plant that came from Mexico. Cosmos is a very daisy-like flower with very simple petals, but it's the leaf structure that's really quite beautiful. They have feather-like leaves on branching stems, a little fern-like and delicate, and they actually grow in kind of an airy, billowing manner, so they're not very tidy, really. You're not going to get a nice, tidy, straight row of cosmos. Rather, you're going to have a very airy-looking and sort of fairy-like garden with the cosmos. Now, cosmos will grow up to 48 inches tall, but there are also dwarf varieties, of which I have one today here, which is only 9 inches tall. Start getting noisy around here. See what I mean? Oh, well, what can I do? This is really a well-loved old-fashioned flower, and it really looks great in a cottage garden, but it's also great in a town or a country garden as well. If you don't mind the wild sort of carefree look and free-flowering habit of the cosmos, you would probably love to have this in your garden. It will bloom all summer long. It's a great cutting flower. It'll last about a week in a vase if you pick it just as the bloom is opening up. As I said before, you can get cosmos in sizes all the way from 9 inches, which is a dwarf cosmos, and all the way up to 48 inches tall. So they can be rather striking in a garden, especially if you plant them according to height. Many of the colors have variegated petals, but the colors generally go from white to pinks to purples and actually all the way down to a very lovely and dark maroon color. Today's second antique flower is Love in a Mist. Isn't that a beautiful name for a flower? Love in a Mist. Pale blue flowers, white and lavenders, shrouded by a collar of ferny leaves. Charming and mysterious. They came to English gardens around 1570. And I would say that the name has very romantic notions. The plant got rather mixed reviews, especially from a London nurseryman, Thomas Fairchild, at the time, who thought of it as rather an odd plant, for the blossom is a very pale blue color and is encompassed with shagged leaves as if it was tied up in a bunch of fennel. But he also said that he would not be without it for the sake of its strange appearance. It also had equally imaginative names such as Devil in a Bush, Love in a Puzzle, and Jack in Prison. And the French called it Bluebeard, Venus Hair, and St. Catherine's Flower, probably due to the spoke-like petals. But it actually did become a very favorite plant of cottage gardeners, and is to this very day. As you can see, the little black leaves are fairly decent size, so it's easy to plant. We are going to want to plant this. It's an annual, of course, coming from the Mediterranean region, and we want to sow it directly below the surface at about 70 degrees, keep it moist, and keep the plants watered, and they do not appreciate dry soil, but they also do not do well in excessive heat and may decline in the heat of summer. You can also leave these in your garden to reseed all by themselves. So we may plant these in the blue border, but I'm just really not sure yet. And amongst all these cottage flowers up here in the slope garden, we have Love in a Mist, one of our flowers for the day. It's kind of a little assuming little bloom, but what's lovely about it is the foliage. And what's even better than the foliage, in my opinion, or the flowers, are the seed heads, because they're just as interesting as a poppy head. In fact, if you look at them, look a little bit like sea monsters. They come in shades of white, pale purple, and blue. Kind of an unassuming little flower, but very, very pretty in a cottage garden. Love in a Mist. That's a sweet name, isn't it? Love in a Mist. While we're up here on the slope, take a look at the vivid blue of these cornflowers. Named cornflowers because they used to grow amongst the stalks of corn, but we know them generally here as bachelor buttons. Bachelor buttons because this little flower would fit perfectly in a gentleman's buttonhole. A few weeks ago we did the video on the larkspur, and now they're finally blooming. So you can see the different shades. I have mostly purple in this garden. I wish I had a little more pink. We didn't. Pink, white, and purples, basically. Not much in the lighter colors. So here's this garden bed right off this little frog pond that I just cleared out. This is the upper part, right off the porch. And I've completely cleared that out. All the bulbs that I had dug up from here, I actually have replaced those. I want those to come back in the spring. But after May, they don't appear anyway. So here we have this nice big barren piece of grass. Lawn. Ground. Get it right the third time. And now it's time to put something here. So I just want to keep it simple. I truly want to keep it simple. I want to do the colors of blue and yellow and maybe a little splash of pink, not sure. But I'm going to use this dwarf lemon sulfur cosmos. It is only 24 inches tall. It is the smaller of the cosmos. We have these long skinny seeds. I'm just going to sprinkle them on the surface and then slightly cover them up. We're going to keep them moist until they germinate, and then we're going to leave them alone. This is a plant that really likes it dry. They actually do much better in poor conditions. They don't want rich loam. They want dry, arid conditions almost. They're a lot like a zinnia, and zinnias as well. They don't like a lot of fuss. So the more you neglect them, once they get going, the better off you'll probably be. They do like it hot and dry, and that's perfect for this section because this really does stay dry. Here we have a garden bed which I planted these seeds about 3 weeks ago or so. Some of them are about 6 inches tall. They're still seedlings. The soil is very, very dry, but they like it that way. Like I said, once they have germinated and begun to grow, do not overwater them because they won't like that. I have some cosmos that are growing in a nursery bed, a nursery trough, and you can see those fern-like feathery leaves that just sort of float in the garden. The little bitty flower buds there. Now these are super dwarf cosmos, and you can see by their flowers how tiny they are. I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're supposed to be this small. These are no more than 10 inches tall, and the flowers are only about an inch across. I think they're so small because they're in this nursery bed, and they're kind of crowded in here with all sorts of other perennial flowers that came out of a wildflower packet. But just so that you can get a good idea of the variety in color, from the white to the multicolored and the deep maroon cosmos. It's a very sweet plant, and it will reseed for you, and it's a great cutting flower. Well, we had a little bit of rain this afternoon, but the sun's come out and everything's dried off, and we were able to set the table for an afternoon lunch. So I'm very glad, because I'm pretty hungry myself. I worked up a big appetite today, and I love quiche. It's one of my favorite things to eat, and I especially like this recipe, which came from a cookbook called The Peachtree Tea Room, which is a tea room in Fredericksburg, Texas, which from all accounts is pretty spectacular. But this quiche is so easy to make, and the crust is actually pretty easy too, and I did not add that to the video because I think most of you know how to make a pie crust, and I really didn't want to lengthen the video too much more than it was. But I do have the recipe for this particular crust down below. So we're doing the wonderful quiche and avocado. I love avocados too. And today's tea, served from this wonderful and whimsical pitcher, is simply a jasmine green iced tea, and it's a generic tea straight from the grocery store. which makes a pretty good iced tea. So it's jasmine green tea served with a little bit of orange and a sweetener, whatever type you desire. I generally don't use sugar in my tea. I use stevia, but of course that's up to you. So let's talk about this fun dishware. Now, I only recently discovered this wonderful ceramic pottery, which is handmade in Portugal. And the originator of this pottery, look at the little carrots. Look at the carrots, the basket weave, the little bunnies. I think they're pulling up a radish, or that could be a carrot too. Just absolutely charming dishware. And the founder of this company was an artist. His name was Rafael Bordallo Pinhiero. I'm maybe mispronouncing that. It is Portuguese, and I'm sort of using a Spanish accent. But the name of the company is Bordallo Pinhiero. The artist Rafael was born in 1875, and this is when he founded this ceramic pottery. So he was known, actually, as a very nice illustrator. He was also a comic illustrator and an artist and a sculptor, and became known as the father of pottery. Here you can see the logo, Bordallo Pinhiero, Portugal. Ooh, don't want to chip that. Ooh, that'd be awful. His themes were animals and nature. And you can see the motifs were often a basket weaves, leaves, anything natural and beautiful. But look at how many designs are in this one bowl. And the logo will be printed on the back. The company has remained in business for over 120 years. And there's actually a museum in Lisbon, Portugal, dedicated to this artist and his pottery. It is still sold today at upscale gift stores, and actually from the factory. You can get it from the factory in Portugal. I just love the whimsy of it. I love that. This is right up my alley. Just look at this hysterical picture with the frog. I mean, I just love it. He's sitting on a squash, and it is so much fun, and they have so many different designs. And since I just recently discovered this pottery, I mean, I don't have very many pieces at the time. But I plan on making this one of my future collections, because you may have seen this pottery before. If you've ever seen the cabbage leaf theme bowls and tureens, plates, those generally started out as this Bordallo Pinhiero pottery. So that is a pretty common theme, the cabbage leaves. But oh my goodness, they have so many more wonderful pictures, plates and bowls. Just so much fun, so whimsical. Exactly the sort of thing that I love. And I think you'll love it too. So I wanted to do this mousse again because we did that strawberry, or it was the raspberry mousse before. And this one was a frozen mousse, this time using blackberries. And obviously I didn't put this one in a tulip. This cup worked out a lot better than the tulip petals did last time. And this this mousse, unlike the other mousse that we made, this one is frozen before you serve it. And it's delicious, I have to tell you. So, we were joined today by a couple of my little ladies here. These are some needle-felted ducklings, inspired by our little ducklings that are now almost full-grown. And so I thought that they would like to join us today because they sort of have matching colors to the flowers in our bouquet today. And in our bouquet today are some beautiful climbing roses, the bachelor buttons, the pink evening primrose, and purple larkspur. All plants that I often recommend that you put in your own garden. So, from Hopalong Hollow, this is Jerry and the Ducklings, wishing you a fond farewell until next time, and thank you very, very much for all your comments all your wonderful comments and emails is so, so much appreciated. Really, really do. I'll try to continue making videos that you enjoy, and I'll see you later. Bye.